My name is Irene Labocan, and I'm the District Principal of Indigenous Education for School District 83. And before we begin, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional territory of the Secwepemc people, on whose territory we live, work, and play. So welcome for coming out, and it's good to see such a full turnout. There are some seats down here if you want to come down. There's at least 6. If you want to come on down, please feel free. What I would like to do is I would like to, first of all, welcome Louis Thomas from the Scotland Band, and he is going to give us a welcome to the territory. So Louis, can I ask you to come up, please?
Oh. Somebody doesn't like me. I completely forgot about it. I was so busy today. I had meetings all day, and I was cutting wood this morning. But I'd like to say a few words in our language, and it's a language we're slowly losing, and I'm just trying to figure out what I'm going to say. Asa oes yami yana itmio yukumin asa white palmo skates was equal. I was going to say Sama because that's who came first, but I can't seem to like that word. To me, it's different people. I always say equal is different in our language. And as always, yam is axiom. Who eat yam is out is fight. You come in as yana to me. Axiom. Yam is yukumina being and away. Why yam is yukuminas. What I'm saying is that a long time ago, our people, when they came to this land, they were looking after it. Then when the other people came in, they all worked together to look after the lands. They helped each other. And slowly we lost that way. And what I'm talking about now is the time that we have to start working together again, because we have a lot of work to do. And I'm glad that they're having school outdoors, because that's where our kids went to school, was outdoors. They learned everything. And a lot of our people led by example, because I think the kids were watching them. And the grannies, the grandpas, they were the teachers. They took the kids and took them out and taught them what they needed to know, because the parents were busy hunting and gathering, and so the grandparents were the teachers. So this is what I'm saying now, is that we have to learn how to work together again. When the people first came from overseas, they relied on our people to survive in this land. Now I think our roles are a little bit reversed. Now we have to learn a different way, because we lost all our old ways. Now we are adapting to the new ways. Okay, and Kukitam Kiam He.
Kukitam Louis, and I know that Louis gives freely of himself to not only us but to his own community. And I had the privilege of interviewing Louis not too long ago, and he certainly is carrying out his mother's message, Dr. Mary Thomas, of working together and helping each other. So thank you, Louis, for taking time out of your very busy day to come this evening. So there's a large committee, an outdoor learning committee, that I think we need to acknowledge before we begin the rest of the program. I know I was late on arriving on this committee, but there's people who have worked on this committee for a long time, and I'd like to just say their names, and so we can acknowledge them. So we have Amanda Bowlby from Carlin, Jaron Kaner from Bastion. You probably know all these names. Chris Strongren from Jackson, Susan Brown, Armstrong Elementary, Glenn Overgaard, North Canoe, Isabel Gervais from Bastion, and myself. So that we are the committee of the Outdoor Learning School. Let's give them a hand, because they work really hard. This evening, we're going to have, I'm going to give you an overview. We're going to just look at the learning opportunities at our district, and specifically at the possibility of reopening South Canoe as a school. And I have fond memories of South Canoe. When I first arrived here 11 years ago, that was where my office was located. And I thought I was in heaven, being outdoors and so close to nature. We're going to look at the background, the survey, and the feasibility, and the timeline. We're going to do a review of programs in our district. We're going to do a review of the research and visits to other schools, and some of you may have heard about that already. And we're going to look at the key themes that would be present at the Outdoor Learning School at South Canoe and how it might look in practice. So this sounds like a lot, but we have a very efficient committee. So I'm going to turn it over to our Director of Instruction, Carl Cooper, and he's going to run through that. So over to you, Carl.
I very seldom get to bring the microphone up, so that's always nice for me. Good evening, everybody. Thank you very much for coming tonight, and we appreciate that. I'm going to start about a month ago and then go back in time and then come a little bit to the future. About a month ago or so, we sent out a survey to all the parents in School District 83, gauging to see if there was going to be some interest for an outdoor learning school in our school district, and then with some outdoor learning questions in addition to that. We expected we would get a response. We didn't expect we'd get 1,003 responses. And so that, what we thought was there would be an interest. We thought potentially there may be an interest for a small group of people. Maybe we might have 80 or 90 students that might be interested in starting a small program. Suddenly we realized that we had almost 400 potential students interested. So it's changed our thinking a little bit, as you can understand. So we had 1,003 surveys. 552 people indicated that they would be interested in enrolling their children in an outdoor learning school, and 391 said they'd be interested in enrolling their child if South Canoe was to open in September of 2018. So we were already, I would say, activated as a group working towards that. That moved us quicker to start doing some pretty hard work on financial pieces, enrollment pieces, and making sure that we're putting all our information together, and of course, has led to tonight. So there's clearly a strong desire in our district with respect to both outdoor education, which is happening in all of our schools, and there is also some definitive interest in opening an outdoor learning school. So that's part of tonight, is to see, okay, 391 people indicated on a survey they're interested. How many people are prepared to give a firmer commitment? Because if we're going to do this and make a presentation to the board to approve opening an outdoor learning school, then we need to make sure that we have some firm commitments and that we're really going to go down this path. So that's part of the purpose of tonight. Where this some of this began was clearly some of the good work that's been going on in the school district, but we had a team head down to 2 other districts last year to look at their outdoor learning schools. So went down to Maple Ridge and Souk, and team spent quite a bit of time there, seeing how they had started the programs, where the programs were at, and those programs are fairly well established, and I believe the one at Maple Ridge has been in existence for more than a decade now. Just under a decade. So we've gathered a lot of learning from that. We brought that back and we started to do some thinking about, is that a possibility for our district? So the reason I want to emphasize that is that we started with the learning piece. Is this a good thing for students? And that's where we started. And I want to emphasize that because we're going to come back to another important piece that starts to enter into this conversation in the fall. And that piece is when restored language came to the teacher contract and student and class size numbers dropped, we suddenly had a much greater demand for classroom space. In addition to that, what also happened at the same time is our enrollment, which had been dropping for 15 years, switched directions, and we grew last year. Wow, that's like almost on cue. And so in addition to that, We have been working with a company Berger, to get some really finite and very powerful and strong and clear projections. And so I've just pulled out a little bit of information here that shows last year, and this is for the four, what I'm going to call the 3 elementary schools and the middle school in Salmon Arm. And last year, let me get my numbers. Sorry, everyone. In 2016, so a little bit over a year ago, Hillcrest had 295 students, South Broadview 251, Bastion 410, and Shuswap Middle 613 students for a total of 1,569. We were projected to go up to 1,594, but as turned out, we were even 60 above that at 1,629. So within a year, we had increased by 60 students within just those 4 schools. As you can see from this graph, we are anticipating further growth in those areas. Last year, within the Salmon Arm area only, we added 8 additional classroom spaces to accommodate both the drop in class size and increased enrollment. And as many of you in this room likely know, we have been converting spaces. The computer room at Bastion is now a classroom. What was the drama room at Shuswap Middle is now 2 classrooms. What once was the District Resource Center at Hillcrest is now 2 classrooms, and we've opened up the final classroom at South Broadview. So in short, we're out of space. So those 2 things came together. One is a project that we were working on and looking towards the potential opening an outdoor learning school. And the reason I wanted to emphasize we started with the education piece is that's where we were at, that this was a good idea, and this made sense for kids. What was always going to be the challenge for us was going to be cost. Did it make financial sense to do that, given that we've had conversations about closing schools and that we have lots of needs in this district that require financial resources? Well, we're now at a point now where we're going to need to put financial resources into opening up additional spaces. So within the next 5 years, we're either going to be putting portables into Salmon Arm, or we're going to need to open up a space. So that question is on the table. We're going to need to do one of those 2 things. At the same time, we're having this conversation that started before the enrollment crunch around outdoor learning schools. Okay, so the reason I wanted to go through that is that I really want to emphasize that this is not a reaction to the pressures around enrollment. This is not a reaction to the need for space, that we were starting down the journey as a good, positive, strong educational belief that this was powerful and good learning for students. And oh, by the way, we have a second issue that this may fit into. Okay, that was really important to us. So I guess I'll close with just saying that we as a district really have a desire for outdoor learning for all of our students. And so one concern I've heard is, if we have an outdoor learning school, does that mean we won't have outdoor education at other schools? I don't see it that way at all. I see our outdoor learning school potentially becoming a hub of learning for all of our schools and all of our students. And I would expect, hope, and push for outdoor education expanding at all of our schools. Does this mean that this would be the only site? Doesn't mean that. This means this is where we're going to start. And we're going to start, if we start, and make sure that it's successful. But does that mean that we don't open or have half a school in Armstrong at some point, or open something up in Enderby? It doesn't mean that. It just means this is where we're starting. Okay? And I guess the last thing I have to say is I'm going to turn it over to those people that have been to those other schools. They're going to talk about the benefits of outdoor learning and their passion for this. And at the end, those people that are interested, we are going to ask you to sign a form of intent that says that we're really committed to this path. We'd really like to be strongly considered for this, because we will take that information into our presentation, because we do need to make a presentation to the board, because we would need the board to approve this, because there's financial costs and other things, and then go forward. So your intent is important to that. If you can't stay for the entire meeting, we also have forms at the back. Okay? I'll take some questions now, or should we wait to the end, eh? Okay? Thank you for your time, and I will turn it over to our speakers.
All right. For those that don't know me, my name is Adam Barabal. I'm a teacher at Shuswap Middle School. I've been involved in some form of outdoor education since I've been in the district for the last 7 years. I just want to take the time to thank everybody for coming out and finding some time in their busy schedule. It really helps, like Carl said, to know that we have this much support going forward. And we heard Carl say several times, outdoor learning. Okay, so what is outdoor learning? If I say outdoor education, we all probably have an image that comes to our mind. Right? We think of hiking or camping or canoeing or kayaking, right? And that's right, that's what outdoor education is. But what we're talking about when we discuss the potential of South Canoe is outdoor learning. And you might say, well, what's the difference? The difference is that there will be or could possibly be threads of that outdoor education, that adventure, getting out there, threaded into the outdoor learning. But the basis and the premise of outdoor learning is that we take our local natural ecosystems and we use that natural environmental lens to teach the BC curriculum, right? So it's a lot more learning going on. It's not just the let's go crazy and go ski. We're actually teaching the BC curriculum through nature's lens, right? So that's the focus of it, is the outdoor learning. Okay? We have a ton of momentum, obviously, going forward with the outdoor learning, and that all happened to start somewhere. And the momentum that we have right now started about 5 years ago. It started by an event put on by the district that was called Outdoor Awesome. It took place at Carlin, and what it was a collection of enthusiastic, educated, positive outdoor teachers combined with a whole bunch of local experts. So we had a wildlife biologist that studies mountain sheep. We had someone that studies the turtles out at White Lake. We had indigenous knowledge keepers come and show us edible plants and plant identification. We had these stations and the kids all went around and they had this amazing time. And it was an opportunity for us to get those kids meaningfully engaged in the environment and into nature and get some of that outdoor learning that we're talking about. So the Outdoor Awesome had two folds. One was to get those kids involved and engaged, but it was also an opportunity to be an informal professional development for those teachers that were from those classrooms. And from that, the district started getting phone calls saying, well, what's this thing about this Outdoor Awesome thing? Can we have it? Can we have it? So it's gone and it's ballooned from that 5 years ago. We've now done 6 more. And we've done them everywhere from Armstrong, Carlin, Larch Hills in the winter, Little Mountain, and Parkview. We've covered 14 different schools, hundreds and hundreds of kids, all the way from K to grade 7. And it's really started that momentum of where we wanted to go, right? And I think, yeah, there's Jeremy right there with some kids. That really kind of snowballed everything to the point where that offshoot was 2 days of professional development, formal professional development for teachers, which has now gone so popular that we now have 7 each year. We took out a busload of teachers out to North Fork Wild, which is a regional park out in Malaqua, and we actually got them to do the activities that they could do with their kids. And I think it was something that they could take back with them and start doing some of that outdoor learning in their own schools. Beyond the Outdoor Awesome and the professional development days, there's been some other programs that have been running for a while, either currently or in the past. There was a part-time outdoor program in Sicamous that was successful, dealing with students that had a hard time self-regulating in the afternoon and focusing. I was actually part of that, and to see firsthand the change in their attitudes towards learning and towards school and their engagement level just skyrocketed when they had that opportunity to get outside, get some hands-on learning, and actually feel part of the community. There is a program called Eco9 that's being offered at SAS, second semester. 80% of it's going to be outside. They're going to get a science credit and a phys ed credit. The teachers that are at South Broadview, the grade 4 or 5s, take their class out at least once a week for some type of outdoor learning field trip. So like Carl said earlier, there was that concern that we would be pulling in all these great minds for this one spot, but there's so much outdoor learning going on in this district, and such a desire for it, that it's not going to be a brain drain. It's going to be a hub that's going to be able to give other teachers an opportunity to come and have some of the professional development learning. Now, with that all said, there is some research behind it as well. I'm just going to touch on some things really quickly. For anyone that's curious and likes to read, all this information is on the school district website. If you go to district departments, outdoor learning, then go to research, and it's all there. So there's about 500 peer-reviewed articles that support outdoor learning in one way or another. And for our project, we split them into two sections: academic benefits and well-being benefits. So the academic benefits, there's so many studies that show that with time in the nature, there's increase in reading, writing, numeracy, science, social studies. There's an enhancement in art and creativity, problem solving. And this one for me, dealing with some of the students I deal with, there can be a significant improvement in ADHD symptoms. You know, so for them to be able to go out, get into nature, there's chemical reactions that happen. And when we're outside, that just allows their prefrontal cortex to really start to fire again and be able to make those positive decisions, to be able to focus and be able to maintain on task. Beyond that, so for well-being, we all know that when we're outside, we're going to be a little bit more physically active. It's also going to help reduce stress, anxiety, aggression, and anger. And it just allows students to cope with the world that goes on around us. And I think for all of us, including myself, I know that when I get outside, I can deal with what I need to deal with on a much more rational level. So, hopefully I didn't speak too fast. Anything that you guys want for research, like I said, go to the school district website. There's lots of good reading there and lots of stuff that supports it. So that is my bit. I'm going to now turn it over to Mr. Kainer.
So right before I get started, can I just do a quick movement break? Can people just raise their hands up if you want to stand up and stretch? I know probably outdoor-oriented people that need movement in this room right now. I need some water already. So I want to talk about Finland to start. Finland. Anyone know any interesting facts about Finland? Yes? Very good, yeah. Anything else? Oh, so she said they don't start school until age 7. They don't do standardized testing? Yeah, I think they do some international standardized testing, but not within their, a national level. Yeah. So up until recently, I knew that Finland was cold and dark for most of the school year. And I also knew that Finland did well on international tests. Every year after year, they're up really high, often in the top 3 in reading, writing, numeracy. I also knew that they rated really high on global scales for happiness. They're always near the top as well. So I found this to be very interesting, and I wanted to do some more research. And I started doing some reading, and I had the opportunity to meet some Finnish people over the past year, some researchers and some teachers, and I got to pick their brain, and I learned a few more things. So the average Finn recreates in nature 2 to 3 times per week. And a little known fact, 5% of the Finnish population engage in long distance skating on rivers. They fund education. They fund research in the field of nature a lot. Recently, there was a $16 million grant for the Green Health and Research project, where they were studying the benefits of nature on the Finnish population. So clearly valued by the government and all the people. The school structure is different. As mentioned, they start a full year later. The first years are very play-based. and preschool is highly valued in Finland, and very outdoors based, and they in fact 10% of Finnish preschools are almost entirely spent outdoors. So interesting. It continues on into elementary school. In elementary school, they still spend a lot of time outdoors. 15 minutes of every hour is spent outdoors, and they don't make up with it by having longer days or more homework. On the contrary, they have less and shorter days. And you just see the value among teachers and among the population in general that there's a lot of cognitive and physical benefits of spending time outdoors. So we decided to look a little bit closer to home than Finland. And we, like Carl had mentioned, we had the opportunity to visit a few schools and talk to a number of different schools and speak to researchers as well in the field of in BC that are exploring these different outdoor-based programs. There are a lot of them. There are dozens, in fact, of programs. Some are in the public system and some are in the private. And they're all doing really interesting things and incorporating outdoor learning into their structure, into their educational structure. So I can't go through all the highlights of everything, but we did see some themes emerge among the schools. And the key themes that we noticed in speaking to researchers and talking to teachers and actually observing these schools was that the kids that go to these schools really love going to school. And the other one is that they feel connected to the school community. Obviously, things that are hugely important. We also found that they were very self-reliant. They could take care of themselves. And they could also socialize. They had a very social capacity to work together in groups. Finally, they displayed a lot of curiosity and an eagerness to learn, which really excites me. So they just were always asking questions and curious, and we really love that. So I won't go into a lot of details, but a few highlights. So Maple Ridge is a K-7 school in Maple Ridge, the Maple Ridge Environmental School, and there's a very alternative program, very place-based, multi-age, community-focused, and all they have is a yurt. They just have one yurt for 88 students, and they spend almost all their time in a forest. So not exactly what we're looking at doing necessarily at South Canoe, but what's interesting is what the observations that we made when we were there. So in my experience going to school and visiting schools around the world is that I've never seen a school like that had such a community feel, like a community focus. I was walking down the trail with one of the students and I was quizzing him on if and why he liked the outdoor school. And his response was, well, I love this school because all the people here feel like my family, right? We went to Williams Lake, so we actually visited a couple of nature caves. There's one in Williams Lake, old Williams Lake, and in Souk, they're currently opening a second school, and these programs are very popular. The Maple Ridge School, in fact, is opening up a second school as well in 2018 because their programs are so popular. And we observed at the kindergarten, at the nature kindergarten, that these kids really could take care of themselves. And they also displayed social capacities that were really impressive for kindergartners. One researcher of the school, a friend of mine, wrote the following, and it's being published soon in an Australian journal. One day, Enid, the researcher, was walking down the trail with 4 children, and three had sticks and were comparing their sticks' characteristics. The fourth child complained she did not have a stick, and without missing a beat, the child beside her broke his stick over his knee and gave her half of his stick, saying, "Now you do." They learned about poetry and metaphor. For example, with a break in the clouds and a bit of blue sky, a child said, "The sky is waving at us." We really like Davis Bay. We didn't go out to Davis Bay, but we had a chance to talk with the teachers for quite a while. And their excitement about the program that they've been running for 5 years now, 5 years, they are just so excited and they see the growth in these kids and they know that the program works. So it was really exciting for us to see that. And that model is really unique because it was a school that was saved from closing down because of declining enrollment, right? And so they opened up an outdoor program. So it was a dual track school. You know how we have a dual track French immersion school. They had a dual track outdoor learning school where there was a conventional stream and an outdoor learning stream. And the teachers were just so excited about it, and they want to promote this because they see the successes. Carl had asked me to speak about achievement. How do these kids do in reading, writing, and numeracy at these different schools? And across the board, there's growth throughout. It's a hard thing to measure in BC, but what we did find is that at Davis Bay, which is probably the model that is closest to what we're looking at South Canoe, that it's pretty similar, the way that the regular track students did compared to the outdoor track. If anything, it was marginally better for the outdoor learning track. But what we do know is that all these schools show a lot of social benefits. And the research is clear on this, that kids that show social success in early life tend to be more successful. So if you're looking for early indicators of success, you want to look at social skills, not academics. Okay, and that's what these schools promote. So I think that's just an important piece to think about. Sorry, I really need to have some water. Apologies. You can have a little stretch here. I wasn't thirsty before. Okay, so we basically distilled some key themes, some key philosophies from these different schools, and based on what we've read and discussions that we've had, and some key themes have seemed to work very well for our context here in the Shuswap. So outdoor learning, you know, we've spoken about this. I mean, that means that the students are spending a lot of time every day outdoors. Does it mean that they're going to be outdoors all the time, every day? No. It depends on what the learning is, what the students are learning at school, right? So the nature is there to support learning. It's the best teaching resource that exists, right? Place-based education is one that's a very hot word right now, and we'd like to see place-based education happen there, which means that you're learning in the place that you are, right? So you're learning about people, you're learning about the history, and you're learning from the physical environment. And that informs all the projects that you undertake, the discoveries that you make, and the questions that you ask, right? Aboriginal education fits in perfectly with these schools. All the systems-based thinking, the holistic thinking that take place outdoors align very well with Indigenous education and the oral tradition as well. Right now in our province, the new curriculum has Indigenous education embedded in every subject area, right? And what a great way to learn about this stuff in an authentic, real way in the outdoors, where Louis mentioned that it was taught like that in the past. That's the way it was done in the past, right? Where am I at here? What's the next one? Inquiry-based. So inquiry-based and experiential education, referring to hands-on, authentic, real projects that are guiding the learning. And when possible, the students are in charge of choosing what it is that they want to learn. Okay? Community-based, and I'm going to tie in multi-age into this because multi-age learning seems to be a major theme that we see in a lot of these schools. So a portion of every day would be spent together in a multi-age setting where the youngest kids could be learning from the oldest kids. And many community members in South Canoe already have come forward and have expressed interest in helping in some way. They've said that they want, they have a pond and they want to give access to that pond, or there's a creek that we would like to, share with the students and some expertise, And we see this as a really exciting opportunity. And we'd like to also reciprocate that at the school. We'd like to see the kids giving back to the community in terms of service learning projects, because we know that kids learn really well and it really empowers kids when you learn that way. So sustainability and eco-literacy is the next one I want to talk about. We need to get beyond reduce, reuse, recycle in our schools. It's not enough. We need to foster environmental leadership, environmental care, and innovation. Okay, I don't really like using the word sustainability anymore. The green architect William McDonough once said, "Who wants to have a sustainable marriage?" Right? Who wants to have a sustainable marriage? Who wants to have a sustainable learning community? Right? We want one that thrives. We want students that thrive cognitively. We want them to thrive socially, emotionally, physically. Right? So for my section, the one thing that I want to get across to all of you is that these programs work. You know, they're proven to work. They're tried and true. They're growing globally. They're growing in BC as well. And I just want to finish by citing the largest study of place-based education. It was a 9-year study. It spanned 9 years, over 100 schools were involved, 1,000 surveys and interviews were conducted. And in the conclusion, they concluded the following here. The findings are clear. Place-based education fosters students' connection to place and creates vibrant partnerships between schools and communities. It boosts student achievement and improves environmental, social, and economic vitality. In short, place-based education helps students learn to take care of the world by understanding where they live and taking action in their own backyards and communities. So I just want to pass it over to Isabelle Gervais right now, and she's going to paint a bit of a picture of what it could look like, this type of learning.
Thanks, Dan.
Good evening, everyone. It's wonderful to see so many people here. My name is Isabelle Gervais, and I'm currently principal at Bastion Elementary. And I'm fortunate to work with so many people in our school district and in my school who really, show us all what outdoor education is all about. I think we're in a very unique situation here in our school district. I know I've traveled to some of these other schools, and a lot of the programs came out of research, came out of people in the community wanting to this kind of learning. But I think here in School District 83, there are so many teachers that are really pushing the movement too, and it's really coming from the grassroots kind of movement. So it's really wonderful to see, and so many people have passion for it. So what could it look like at South Canoe? So I don't know how many of you have seen the school before, but that's the little South Canoe school there. And I know there's many residents in that community that would love to see it kind of resurrected and become a school again and give it life. And so we are looking at that as a possibility for outdoor learning. So as Adam said, outdoor learning rather than outdoor education. This all done with the same BC revised curriculum that you see in your schools throughout the school district as well. So why South Canoe? Well, it's pretty well an ideal location, we feel. It's sitting surrounded by forests and trails and parks and creeks, and a community that really wants to see it happen. And I think those are some of the really special ingredients for an outdoor learning school. It's also in a climate where it's comfortable to be outside pretty well all year round. And so not something that all schools do have that are outdoor learning. I know even when we went to Maple Ridge, it was -3, and it was so humid that it was rather cool. But the kids were out all day. They weren't cold. We weren't quite acclimatized to that weather yet. But here in Salmon Arm, we get a bit of a different rain here. So South